Hey there, Laker fans. Welcome to another episode of Lakers Extra Detailed. So, in this episode, I just want to add a little bit more context to some of the stuff that we've been doing when we've been talking about the Lakers trade deadline targets. So, Lakers lose a game last night to the Philadelphia 76ers, and it's a bad game. AD goes out about midway through the first quarter, and the Lakers just kind of off of a back to back. Everybody's kind of guessed like they were very very disjointed even before AD got hurt, and so that's a game where you kind of really learn nothing at all about the team, and you don't get sort of the response that you want from the team in order to to win the game. And so it was an awful game to watch, but it is what it is. That's just sort of what happened. And one of the things I wanted to sort of discuss was, the news has come out from Clutch Points, Anthony Irwin, Red Siegel, mentioning that Miles Turner might be available again as a potential option. He might be on the trade market again. And so naturally, I think they also reported too as well that the Lakers have had some internal conversations about Miles Turner. So I'm not going to go over the whole article, but feel free to go hit Anthony Irwin's uh, X page and take a read through what he wrote, because it is good information. Uh, but one of the things I wanted to talk about was just this idea of what type of big makes the most sense. I did do the video on Vucevic, and I still do feel that he should be somebody that the Lakers should consider. But I thought maybe I didn't do a good enough job sort of explaining why it's a very specific ask, as opposed to something that's just very like flat off flat. Just add this guy, we're automatically gonna be there. I think there are very specific things that JJ is trying to do with some of his lineups that are that that require better personnel. And so I just want to kind of quickly cover that in this video today, and share some data, because I think data is often our guide as long as you use it responsibly, and you don't use it in a manner that kind of makes things to push an agenda or a narrative. So there's two specific things that I think the Lakers have to do when there's two specific asks of this big man, that the Lakers have to address, and these are overlapping things. This big man has to be capable of doing both roles, because I think that player that they're going to try and get, that big man that they try to get, has to fundamentally or functionally bridge the gap between the non AD and non Braun lineups. And I think that's a core thing that the Lakers have to be very confident about. I think it's a core thing that would help the Lakers overall be a better team, because it would help both lineups. And the way I sort of think of it, is essentially like this, like this. These are the things: the center that the Lakers get, and both these things have to happen. The center that the Lakers get has to be able to space the floor and battle fives, like rebounding on the glass. Doesn't necessarily have to be a rim protector, like a high level rim protector, but has to be able to space the floor for Anthony Davis, and battle with other fives for rebounds. Outside of in single, but like do the stuff that we want him to do, which is the stuff I've covered before, like single man box out. You shouldn't need help boxing out. That five shouldn't need help boxing out if he's on the floor next to Anthony Davis, that sort of thing. Shot changing and stuff like that is really important for sure. But I think for those lineups specifically, the ones where Braun is off the floor and Anthony Davis is on the floor, I think the spacing and battling fives is really, really important. And the reason why I'm saying that is let me share the data behind it. So when we take a look at this data, and let me enlarge it for you guys so it's easier to see. So when we take a look at what happens with the Lakers offense and defense when LeBron is off the floor, and there's just different combinations of Anthony Davis, and the Lakers are trying different things. JJ Redick is trying different things. But when we look at what happens with the offense and the defense, so like I covered in the last video, it's almost nominal. It's very nominal difference. They're almost at a net zero. They're not really great. They're not really bad. They're just trending over the course of 560 possessions. They've just been sort of treading water. They've been a net zero more or less. Minus 1.2 is not a, like, just because there's a minus doesn't mean a big deal. It's more or less zero. And the Lakers have functionally been doing this for most of the season, with Rui Hachimura being their next biggest guy on the floor, right? So Anthony Davis is the biggest guy on the floor. Noah LeBron's on the floor. Rui Hachimura is the second biggest guy on the floor. And we know what Rui's limitations are defensively. shooting wise, that sort of thing. He doesn't really get his plays called. He's just kind of a guy who's basically a 3-and-D guy, unless LeBron's out and the JJ schedules or creates a lot, but runs a bunch of sets for him. So the defense is still pretty good. Like if we look at the Lakers defense, points per possession, they're about 113.8. That ranks in the 91st percentile for all of the lineups that the Lakers have. So the defensive level is still pretty high, probably because you've got different guys, Gabe Vincent, Max Christie on the floor. Obviously Anthony Davis is a huge eraser, like a defensive floor raiser when he's on the floor. I think one of the things that would help the Lakers for that lineup specifically is the five that they get is not an offensive centric five, but a five that can rebound really well and can knock down open jump shots or be like sort of like a safety valve for AD to go to or for his teammates to go to while keeping size on the floor. So when we look at the offense, that's a core problem. Like when it's just AD on the floor and no LeBron's on the floor, there isn't a steady enough ceiling of offense for them to do it. And so that's why that net rating is like that. So what happens? So that's the first concern. Like that's the first thing that we have to address, that there's somebody on the floor for when Bron is off the floor that can help AD with rebounding, battling other bigs, the Steven Adams, the Zach Edey's, those types, but can also space the floor for Anthony Davis too as well, and allow Anthony Davis to take more of a, hey, I'm gonna go and shoot when I want, shoot how I want to shoot, do my isolations, but on defense I just gotta play help defense. I don't necessarily have to be the guy that blocks shots too as well. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I think, and that's why I wanted to share the data behind it. And then the second thing I think the Lakers have to try and balance out is they have to find a center that can like screen and score and basically run pick and roll with LeBron when AD isn't on the floor. And I think that is a core requirement. If you watch the Sixers game, you see LeBron having to work really, really hard to get his shots. Like if you've watched LeBron all this season, no matter how you think he's been playing offensively, a lot of his scoring in the half court is either taking open threes or he's backing guys down from almost the 3-point line or above the free throw line and backing them all the way down. And he takes a mid-range or he posts them up, gets a bucket at the rim, or he gets his shots off of like transition layups and that sort of thing. So the traditional first step, LeBron bullying a guy all the way to the rim, that's not there right now. It might come, after the All-Star break and in the playoffs, but right now it's not there. And the fact that he also doesn't really get foul calls at the rim, that ends up compounding like his behavior, right? Like he's not going to keep attacking the rim knowing that he's not getting foul calls. Like he's going to take the open three if that's available. And he's been shooting well from three, even amidst all the slumps. So I think if you want to generate shots in the paint for the Lakers, if you want to continue that rim pressure on the floor, and you're not going to be able to get it from LeBron when AD is off the floor, and the Lakers don't run like a bunch of off-ball cutting offense and stuff like that, I think that has to come in the form of whoever that five is. And so the Lakers are trying to do that with Jackson Hayes. They have Jackson Hayes out there at times. He catches lobs and whatnot from LeBron. But that is a core thing. I think that is a core thing that lineup needs. So when we take a look at the data for that, we can flip this all around, right? So we can just put LeBron in this situation and we can take Anthony Davis out of this situation. And then we can take a look and see what happens when he's on the floor. Like the metrics are just bad, right? Like the offense and defense is just really bad. But there is something in the data that gives us a little bit of insight in regards to what might work potentially, or how the Lakers can remedy sort of this situation. Like if you look at some of this, look at the data over here, you can see that there's variants of Jackson Hayes and LeBron, but then Rui Hachimura is on the floor, and that maybe Rui is just too low of a defensive player floor wise. That's causing issues for the Lakers. He's also slow-footed, much more slow-footed. It's basically having two LeBrons defensively on the floor. Bron fans, don't get mad at me. But that's the way I would sort of describe what's going on. And obviously, Bron's always going to preserve himself. He's not going to go crazy on defense to do it. So you can see that the metrics are just bad, just straight up bad with AD off the floor. But there is a small change that's happened, right? Like if we take Rui out of these, if we look at lineups where, and Dorian's been coming off the bench, where Dorian's coming out, Dorian's in the lineup with LeBron, you can see how all the metrics get boosted up, right? Everything gets significantly better. But the main difference is that the defense gets significantly better. Like the defense gets really good. You get a better floor spacing complement to LeBron. And obviously, Dorian Finney-Smith, we know, is a great defensive player. But there's actually another layer to this that I think Laker fans have to consider when we think about this situation. And that's the introduction of Vando back into these lineups. The Lakers have been, he's still working his way back, so the data is not going to be good. It's a very small sample size because it's only really 16 possessions. I think they are probably all against Charlotte or the Warriors, I'd imagine. I think it's probably Charlotte is when we played this lineup specifically. They're playing Vando at small ball center. So if we know Rui's the main chip going out, and we know the Lakers are trying to, and we know that the Lakers become a much better defensive team with Dorian on the floor and conceivably with Vando too on the floor, ignoring this data, the defensive data to some degree because it's so small. If we know the Lakers become a much better defensive team with Dorian and Vando, it makes sense that the Lakers should look at a guy who can run a two-man game with LeBron and whoever the other ball handler is on the floor with them. If you're going to run lineups of LeBron, Dorian, and Vando when AD is off the floor, so that you have like a baseline of really good defense and rebounding on the floor, and the off ball and the other ball handler is going to be either Gabe Vincent or Austin Reeves or whoever the Lakers have in that position, then it makes a little bit more sense for the center to be a guy that can run the two-man game with LeBron, because he'll most likely in those lineups what the Lakers are doing the same way they're doing for Anthony Davis. The Lakers are letting LeBron dictate how that offense is going to run. Is it going to be freestyle? Is it going to be setting up post-ups? Whatever it is. But the one thing that Bron can't do is he can't run pick and roll with anybody in those lineups, because you can't really run it with Jackson Hayes because teams don't respect Jackson Hayes' ability to score the basketball. Can't post up with anybody other than LeBron because you're going to have Dorian who can't post up, Vando who doesn't have an offensive bag, and then obviously the other ball handler is going to need somebody to help him screen too as well. So you have to consider those two things. I think those are the two things that the Lakers absolutely have to look at between both of those lineups, both of those situations, to figure out if they'll be successful, like to address their needs. I don't think it's as simple. It sounds as simple as go trade for Miles Turner and that's it. That's the end of it. That certainly could be the case too as well. I won't disagree with that. But I think like when we think about it strategically, which is the way that, we're Lakers, we're detailers. That's the way we think about it. It's not as simple as just throwing two first picks. We have to think about how the player functionally helps the Lakers. And I think those two things are the things that the Lakers absolutely have to consider. One is that the center has to be able to space the floor and battle big fives, just fives in general. Single man box outs, rebound, not needing a whole bunch of extra help to rebound in two big lineups with Anthony Davis. And that player has to also be able to basically play pick and roll with LeBron when AD isn't on the floor, so that the Lakers can continue to generate more shots. You get the downhill LeBron that's throwing passes to cutters and 3-point shooters, that sort of thing. Like we've seen the Lakers try to reintegrate Dalton Connect back into the game to space the floor for LeBron. Like I think that the one thing that the Lakers are missing is a guy that allows Bron to get downhill and doesn't force him to have to always post up and take these really, really tough mid-range shots or get checked at half court because teams are just jamming him up and trying to crowd his real estate. So I'll be very, hopefully Anthony Davis isn't out for too long and the Lakers can play at least 500 basketball when that part happens. But we'll see what the Lakers end up doing. Obviously, I think right now most people are charging too much right now for or asking too much for their all the different sort of all the different players that are available. They're asking for first round picks or unprotected. I think the price cost is too high, and so we might hear something as it gets a little bit closer. But I think that's how the Lakers address that. If I was thinking about it strategically, just watching everything in depth and just kind of looking at the data, I think that's how we do it. I think that's the goal. That's what the Lakers are looking for. So we'll see what the Lakers do. We'll see if they make a move sooner or later, and hopefully Anthony Davis recovers faster. So I hope you have a wonderful day. And if nothing else, I'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.